How's it going, guys? It's Turin here. Today, guys, I'm here with another Total War Warhammer online commentary. In this battle, I will be playing the Greenskins against the Wood Elves. So let's go ahead and take a look at the army composition, and we can go from there. So in the front line, I do have a combination of Orc Biggins and Savage Orcs. So I like to mix and match them against the Wood Elves. Granted, just to be completely honest, I haven't played the Greenskins in quite some time, so I definitely need to kind of catch up on the current metagame. But still, I figured that the Orc Biggins would be a decent answer against Treekin in the front line, as they do have a little bit more armor against the Treekin, who don't have heavy armor piercing damage themselves. And on top of that, they do have an anti-large bonus. So against the Treekin front line, you know, they will be somewhat efficient. Then you mix in the Savage Orcs here. So the Savage Orcs will do well against Eternal Guard style builds because they have very high DPS with 38 weapon strength, frenzy mechanic, and physical resist, all things which are going to be very, very good against Eternal Guards. But against Dryads, actually, which he has, and Treekin, they're really going to struggle. So I really like that unit pick from my opponent, kind of mixing it up and doing some mind games action, getting Dryads and Treekin in the front line. So definitely some scary stuff. In the back, I do have the traditional Gobbo firing line with 2 Goblin Archers and the Rusty Arrows to help focus down Treekin and Durthu, anything like that. In the back, I do have a Goblin Big Boss, who's also very good against the Wood Elves, because, again, he hits pretty hard for his cost. He's very fast, mobile, can apply poison, and he's good for, like, sniping Branch Wraiths and, you know, those type of heroic units. But, unfortunately, my opponent doesn't have a Glady. He has the mighty Mel Gibson, so Gibson is going to be very scary to deal with for this guy. So, I do have an Orc War Boss with potions, an Orc Shaman with the Ere We Go, and Fists of Gork for just kind of the traditional buffs. And then, in the back, I do have a Night Goblin Shaman, which I think is pretty much a staple, because when you fully strip him down for 360, you can bring Itchy Nuisance, which is a very good spell, and then you can also bring Sneaky Stealin', which reduces the power recharge rate of your opponent's Winds of Magic, which is so powerful, especially against like Lore of Life, which I'm sure my opponent does have over there. I think he does have a Branch Wraith. So in the back, I do have a Goblin Doom Diver Catapult. So this game, instead of trying like Orc Biggins and different things like that, and more mobile build, I wanted to try something to see if I could really get my value out of these Doom Divers and the Hammer of Gork, considering it was a very open field map. But he didn't have any Glade Guards, and that's really what I wanted to target with these guys. So the investment turned out to not be so good in this, based on how my opponent built his army. In the back, I do have some Nasty Skulkers and the 8-peak Loonies. So the Nasty Skulkers, you just kind of use in the back. So if they have like a Hawk Riders or a Glady or anything like that, use the Smoke Bomb to just kind of snare them down. So in the far side, I did a deep Vanguard of 2 Goblin Wolf Riders, so we'll see how those bad boys do. For my opponent, I really like his build, front line of Dryads, which are pretty decent against Greenskins, because number 1, they do have physical resist, and number 2, they do magic damage. So they're going to get around the Savage Orc meta, because a lot of Greenskin players, and granted, I'm pretty amateurish at the Greenskins now. They used to be one of my better factions, but still, they'll do pretty well against Savage Orcs, I think. And mixed in with Treekin in the front line, that's a very heavy hitting front line. Thankfully, I didn't go full Savage Orc, and I did bring some Biggin, so I should be okay. But guys, we will indeed find out. He has the mighty Gibson leading the pack, and man, just look at those power hooves just coming in here. But he does have most of the items, Cloak of Isha, to give him the damage mitigation and all these other good abilities here. So in the back, he does have some Azurai Spears, some Wild Riders, which Wild Riders are good against Greenskins. They can trade really well with Orc Warboy Biggins, and just great against light armor in general. One more group of Azurai Spears and some Hawk Riders. So guys, without further ado, let's get this battle rolling. So if we're over here, he is in range of my artillery pieces, which have begun to shoot into these Dryads, but it's not going to be terribly devastating. I was really hoping to go after some missile units, but you can see these Doom Divers are just going to come in here pretty hot. My opponent does pop the Hounds of Gibson right there, but look at these Doom Divers just coming to the trees. But looks like the trees actually do bleed, like, I guess a human-type blood, I would say. But over here, the Orc Biggins do take a little bit of damage from the Hounds of Gibson, taking about 4 or 5% of their HP from that ability. So nothing terribly devastating, but still, it's, Orion's getting in there, doing some work. The Doom Divers continuing to pepper that front line, and the Dryads are probably the best choice considering they're, somewhat lightly armored. And you can also see I do have my Focus Fire going in on these Treekins. So what you want to do in this situation is get the Rusty Arrows as well as your Goblin Archers just to kind of start peppering them. You can see they're down to 50 armor from that Sundering. And in the front, the Savage Orcs are going to engage against the Treekin, but this Savage Orc line is just going to get buckled so hard. I think Savage Orcs might be able to beat Dryads 1-to-1. I'm not 100% sure. I'd actually like to do some testing on that, but with the Treekin here, it's going to be a really rough situation because they do cause fear, so the frenzy mechanic is going to get lowered, pretty quickly. So in the front line, you can see my Savage Orcs are literally getting savaged. Granted, I am returning some fire with those arrows. Over here, Mel Gibson is doing some really good work, and he's still, he does cause fear and terror. So these Biggins, once they're, if I'm not mistaken, they do have a frenzy mechanic. So do they? I guess they don't. So they don't have a frenzy, so they're not immune to psychology. So very good Lord placement from my opponent. You can see he already terror routes this entire front line and just pushes me back, which is a really rough situation. You can see my heroic units over here are kind of pushing over, so I sent my Orc Shaman as well as the 8-peak Loonies over here to kind of push into the back and support these troops, because he did send his Wild Riders over here, and I also do detach some of these guys, or not detach, excuse me, they get routed. But I do cast an Itchy Nuisance here to try and mitigate some of that damage, but just look how hard his tree can just crush my front line. Over here, I made a huge mistake. I decided to send my Orc Warboss after Mel Gibson, and man, this was not a good situation for me because I figured these Savage Orcs would help him, and like, okay, I have a surround, I can pop the wad, all these other things, but Gibson actually comes over, and these Azrai Spears come over as well, and he just gets a great surround. So I pull these nasty Skulkers in to try and help out, you know, cast Smoke Bomb, but look how hard Orion is just dumpstering my Lord, and he actually terrifies him. So the Pig is actually substantially slower than a lot of other, you know, mounted units. So it actually only has 62 speed, and Mel Gibson has 56 speed himself, so he's very fast. So you can see the Azrai Spears are kind of blocking the movement of some of my troops, and then the mighty Mel Gibson's chasing my Pig, and he's getting obstructed by some of these fleeing goblins. So right now, Gibson is just in hot pursuit. He's going to get in here, just start spearing my Lord, and this is just a very bad situation. Look at this. He's just right on his hip, just chasing him down. There is no escape from the mighty Hoofmaster. And look at it. Look at him. He's like speed walking right there. That's like, that's pretty insane. So my Orc Warboss is just getting absolutely destroyed. He gets shattered, and then Mel Gibson is going to go in for the death blow right here. Look at that spear up in the air, and he just gets decapitated so horribly. So, I mean, other parts of the battle weren't going terrible. You can see in the front, like I had a lot of Savage Orcs. My Biggins were actually turning the tide of the battle. Over here, my the branch Wraith and the guys were able to, you know, jump on this branch. Excuse me, my nasty Skulkers were able to jump on this branch Wraith, which is okay. I was kind of pinning him down, but I did win this side pretty efficiently. Hawk Riders got chased off the battlefield, but still, he has a lot of troops, and you guys can see now that my Lord is dead, the balance of power is looking very grim. Granted, he only has 271 troops left, so, you know, we'll see how it goes, guys, but losing the Pig Master was definitely a rough one. So over here, Mel Gibson is back in it. You know, he's chasing down my Rusty Arrows and my other high-value units. Definitely very good, taking advantage of his mobility. So Mel Gibson has 56 speed, and it seems like, you know, you guys have probably noticed that, like, when a unit gets close to something, it gets a little bit of acceleration from the charge. Oh, did you guys see that? Oh, look at that. He's just totally trashing this Goblin. He just picked him up and speared him, and it's really cool actually when Mel Gibson does that to like a Lord. I've actually seen him do it to like a Dwarf Thane where he like picked him up and speared him. He definitely has some cool custom kill animation, so I'm glad I got to show you guys at least the tail end of that. But something else a lot of people don't consider with the Gibson is that he does have that terror mechanic, so against a lot of the Greenskin units who are very weak against terror, he's a kind of a cool niche pick against Greenskins. I really liked how my opponent used him. You can also see the Wild Riders are riding down a lot of my Biggins, and granted, this is a somewhat healthy group of Biggins. There's like a, you know, a bit left. There's still 31 models, so had I been able to get them back and reform ranks, maybe with some of these guys here and, you know, these missiles and Savage Orcs in the back, that could have been very good for me. But still, it's not completely out of control yet. I do get my Orc Shaman as well as this Goblin Big Boss, and I do get a decent little surround on this Branch Wraith. So I decided to pull my Goblin Wolf Riders because it's not really beneficial to have them there. They're wavering because this thing does cause fear, the Branch Wraith does. So I decided to send them over, try and get a rear charge on these Treekin, who, you know, I guess their leadership's high right now, but if these Dryads route and the 8-peak Loonies are able to kind of surround these guys with these Wolf Riders, I should be able to route those Treekin. And once like a heroic unit like a Treekin or, you know, anything like that routes off the battlefield, all you need to do is really send Goblin Wolf Riders after them. And then, you know, you're going to get some very good value. Essentially 300 resources chasing off about 900. Thankfully, my Goblin Big Boss and my Orc Shaman here are able to chase off this Branch Wraith, which is a great pick. It's a heroic unit. It has some pretty good abilities. But, you know, he probably has been pretty hampered by the sneaky stealing that I've had over the course of this whole battle. So right here, he is shattered. I believe I do finish him off because I didn't notice that he had shattered, but still. The mighty Gibson is on the hunt. He got done, you know, kind of spearing down some of these goblins over here. So he's back at it, guys. He's just going to run around. I think he sees this Night Goblin Shaman over here, which I was able to use in conjunction with the Savage Orcs as well as these Goblin Archers to kind of rout off this Dryad, this group of Dryads. So there's actually only one Dryad right here. And look at this Goblin just chasing him with his axe up. Oh, man, Goblins are such a... Oh, man, he actually cut that thing's head off. Look at that. Just pure savagery, but Gibson's coming in for some sweet revenge, and he'll definitely get like 2 or 3 shotted by Gibson. He actually gets immediately terror routed, so you can see Orion's actually taking a bit of missile fire. He does use the Hounds of Orion over here to actually waver these Goblins, so very well played there using that ability. I do have some Savage Orcs coming in, and does Gibson have any sort of... No, he has missile resist, but the, you know, the pure Savage Orc type damage will actually add up against him, but you can see he takes like 40-50 damage there with one of those volleys. But there are some Wild Riders coming from the far side, which are going to be very tough to deal with, so you can see those Wild Riders are simply just going to chase down my Goblin Archers and some of these other guys over here. So I do have the Treekin surrounded, so this was a really good situation because these guys are only at like 17 leadership, pretty darn low, and if I can rout off 8 full models, that's 8, and they come with 9 guys. So that's still a very heavy investment of, you know, a big contributing factor to his balance of power. So if I can route them off there at -16, I can simply send one of my really tattered Wolf Riders to chase after them. But he does get these Azrai Spears over here in the back who are able to kind of fend off my Goblin Wolf Riders and send them kind of running. My 8-peak Loonies will continue fighting, and 8-peak Loonies are very good against these type of units, like lightly armored units. They do poison attacks. They hit pretty hard. Regiment around, you know, again, 36 melee attack, 33 melee defense is very good for a group of Goblins. But unfortunately, those Treekin, despite going down to like negative leadership, were able to kind of, you know, retaliate and come back. And you can see my Orc Shaman is not in great shape, and the mighty Mel Gibson is coming over from the distance. So we'll fast forward just so we can get you guys to the glory of Gibson faster. So he comes in here, and he's just going straight after my heroic units. And Gibson is a scary duelist, guys. He has like over 500 weapon strength, very good melee attack, and I'm not sure what his melee defense is. Let's actually look. So his melee defense is pretty low, but you know, with Lore of Life, he's a little bit forgiving in that respect, and his mobility is also a very good defensive characteristic about him, is that he's so fast. He can, you know, move really, really quickly and just do some serious work. So at this point, my forces are completely shattered. So guys, definitely a huge blunder. You can see the AP Loonies throwing some guys there at the last, my last stand right there into some of these riders, but it didn't appear to take any of them out. So. But yeah, when I lost my Orc War Boss there, everything just kind of shattered after that. And you know, when he first shattered, I was like, oh, maybe I can get away. He'll rout, and he's on a mount, so maybe he'll, you know, get away from Gibson. I didn't even get a chance to pop my potions because I was not expecting that sort of business. So super well played to my opponent. It was a really fun game, man, and just getting to see Mel just go to town like that. There's few things as enjoyable as that. So really well played to W Badger 13. You could see his Dryads and Treekin front line did really well against my guys. Like, they outclassed my Savage Orcs and Biggins pretty efficiently. So he didn't have any missiles either. So my big investment in artillery, which was almost 2,000 resources, was just pretty much completely wasted. I mean, they did not pay for themselves. So again, well played. Look forward to seeing you again on ladder, and I hope you guys enjoyed that Greenskin cast. And guys, I got more content coming soon.